This is the end, Zaxamar. This is the end.
This is the end of the world as we know it. Oh, man. Okay, so Averick. Averick. What are we here for today?
Another banger.
Another banger. Welcome, everybody. This is Cinema Span. I am your host, Louis Hilligus IV. With me today, I have Averick Faeth.
What's up?
Returning guest, musician, comedian, actor, all around little artiste.
I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, man.
A connoisseur of the arts.
Of course.
Aren't we all? A little bit, we dabble. Everyone dabbles. Everyone dibbles and dabbles.
Exactly. And so this double was completely out of left field.
Yeah.
For me. What I really loved about this was that you were at like a Goodwill or a DVD store or something, and I could tell you could tell that part of the story, but basically you came to me with a DVD and said, "Read it and weep. It has 07 on the back, so now you have to cover this."
Exactly.
You're like, "I'm forcing you to watch this." The only thing we know about this film is that it was directed by the director of the Blair Witch Project.
Right.
And so I took it upon myself to pick a movie that you hadn't heard about either. And we basically, my movie was Mr. Brooks, starring Kevin Costner here, which we will get into. But
and the movie you're talking about is Believers.
Right.
Which we'll show you the covers too.
Exactly. Yeah, anyways, but so we're we kind of double featured these, and
which is great. Like we kind of like went toe to toe with movies,
right?
Almost,
But I think we were both pleasantly surprised by both of these picks.
Yeah, for sure.
In some great ways, because these are what's so great is these are like DVD bargain kind of movies. Like they definitely fell out of fashion. I don't think anyone's ever really talking about these.
Yeah, for sure. You could be finding these movies in your Walmart bins for $6 to $8 on discount.
Oh, $6 to $8 is generous, man. This is like the $1 to $2 range, I would imagine.
I think
like the Believers DVD, I love so much because it has the unrated tag on the front of it, which is something they would just do to boost sales. Like they were like there's no unrated material in this film. Like there's nothing that would require this to skirt the theatrical system and then be put into the DVD form, so that kids could never see it and someone would have to flash an ID, but there's no, it's all branding. I mean, American Pie was doing this back then,
That's right.
Every horror and every comedy was jumping in on the trend.
It's funny, too, because I was mostly interested after the film doing all these DVD features. So curious to see, like, their interesting cuts, especially it being unrated to see something. And the one thing we clicked on happened to be, like, the most interesting thing about, like, the whole entire story. But it was, like, a side cut, but it wasn't, like, scary or unrated.
Well, yeah. Well, like, exactly. The movie itself was, like, not super interesting. I mean, it's fun to get into, but it felt like the best piece of art was the behind the scenes, like found footage type stuff that they were making.
So interesting
for the extras, which is you're just kind of like, oh yeah, they have a better concept on paper.
Right.
It's just about the execution.
Right. So which one should we talk about here first?
I think. Well, I mean, we are kind of riffing on Believers. We could push it, but I mean,
it's fresh on the mind. That's probably why.
It probably is. I mean, I say let's do Brooks. Let's that's the way we planned it, I guess.
And you approached me with this movie as a surprise when I got here.
Yes.
And we just went straight in.
Yeah. So I was kind of just browsing like the lowest average rating for 07 movies on
really?
Letterboxd. Yeah. Just to kind of be like, okay, I want to definitely go for something he hasn't heard of. I almost picked like a fun monster movie because I know we're like Godzilla fans.
Sure.
I was like, oh, it might be fun to do like a not Godzilla, but a different monster attacking a city. Because there's a few of those. But I wanted to pick something because you did bring that. I wanted to bring something that felt horror adjacent, but wasn't fully there.
Thriller-esque.
So thriller-esque. Mr. Brooks is such an interesting piece of 07 like just culture.
Absolutely.
Because so half of this movie is inspired by Dexter.
Right.
Which is basically what was a huge popular TV show during the thousands about a serial killer played by Michael C. Hall.
Yes.
But he was also a police detective. So kind of the whole thing was that he knew how to hide the evidence, because he knew what the cops would be looking for. And then if, he did leave some evidence behind, he'd be close enough to everything that he could kind of like readjust it and keep playing the long con, which worked really well for like a TV formula
For sure. And
story.
It's fresh too.
Well, and because you can just always like introduce a new character and be like, oh, are they going to get close to the truth? And then, oh no, he kills them. And it goes off. And there was also this family element to Dexter. His sister was in the police squad. And then his dad was also a serial killer, and he kind of like has the vision of his dad in the later seasons coming and talking to him and like influencing like what he's doing and kind of driving his neuroses a bit.
Interesting.
And all of that is like, it feels like somebody saw that and was like, great, we're just going to make a movie version of that.
Just kind of scrunch it together.
Yeah, but they planned this to be a trilogy of films, apparently.
That's right.
It's only the first one. And I think that's probably where some of the problems come, is that like they didn't go far enough on any of the ideas.
Yeah.
But like this movie is insane because Kevin Costner is playing a serial killer, right? And he's the thumbprint killer.
Yep.
And he's like the company he runs is like a cardboard box company.
Yeah, which is like kind of trickled
Or
in.
something. Like it's just they just mention it, but
like,
it's a weird, very weird profession.
He's also connected somehow in like a city of commerce or something to that effect.
Yeah.
know?
He is. I mean,
he's like a city man.
because he gets like a City of Commerce award at the beginning,
Right.
but they kind of tie in the family element of this all because his daughter is like revealed to be a killer too, like
Right.
later on, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
But then also like the threads of like other people blackmailing him and trying to like get close to the serial killer. You could see where they're trying to replicate Dexter in this, but
I haven't seen Dexter, so
yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
But so I get what you're saying too, which they probably pulled a lot of inspiration. And during this early 2000s era, anything crime or murder was just getting eaten up. You know?
CSI, like,
Yeah.
all those shows just popping off, like Law and Order, like, all
And they're
all the
all
procedurals.
multiple
And then-
episode shows.
Yeah,
That just people
but dude, serial
watch.
killer shows are still huge. There's the Dahmer
Absolutely,
show that
yeah.
came out like a year or two ago, and that
It's
was
never
like
really left.
a huge hit for Netflix.
But Mr. Brooks to me too, was a really big surprise.
Mr. Brooks.
Mr. Brooks. But Mr. Brooks is also a movie that surprised me as coming from like, I see the comedy in a lot of like funny stuff like this. It's early 2000s. That's like not supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
And then what strikes me about these earlier movies is the score. And as soon as you put that on, I was on full go.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, all right, this score is awesome. The charm about certain movies just have charm, and then this movie when it started, I was like, oh yeah. What was the quote?
Well, the opening quote
Yeah.
howled me. Like I literally had to pause the movie so that I could like double over. And I feel like both of these movies had a moment like that at the very beginning. Where I was
Yeah.
like, holy shit, this is what we're in for. And I was like, oh yes, because that you go into movies kind of knowing what to expect a lot of the times,
Yeah.
especially if you've seen a trailer. So there's a certain joy to a blind watch. And knowing like, oh, this is gonna be bad,
Yeah.
like right from the start.
Yes.
It's so like there's just a generic white font on a black screen. And it
Fades
says,
in.
"The hunger has returned to Mr. Brooks's brain. It never really left." and
never really left.
yeah, and then it and then it cut to him winning the City of Commerce award.
Yep.
But I mean, they established Mr. Brooks as a serial killer pretty fast. So he's like driving home with his wife, and then basically the way they manifest his killer tendencies is through another character. So Kevin Costner is hardly really playing the killer at all, and he's like just trying to be the nice guy, which does kind of play into him as a person. And then we've basically got William Hurt as this other person in the back seat, just being like, Marshall, let me kill. We gotta kill.
Yeah. And Marshall is like probably my favorite dynamic in this movie. because no one.
He's fun. He's fun.
No one can hear him, of course, except for Kevin Costner.
And he's always quipping back. Like Kevin Costner's always like talking back to him. But it's like he's trying to channel the Marshall energy, you know, because he's like, I am Marshall too. Yeah. And there's times when Kevin Costner's in killer mode and he is trying to drop into like being mean and scary, and it just doesn't work. But Marshall's like just fucking living it up, like cackling. He's like the Joker, like cackling along, like
100%.
like fuck yeah, I made you do this, like yeah.
He's like, if you guys have seen the Venom movies, with Venom inside of James Hardy's head, it's like when Willie Nelson gets Carnage. It's kind of like that, but more like maniacal and like trolly, because like something bad will happen to Kevin Costner, like they're almost getting caught. And then like it just pans over to Marshall, and Marshall's just cracking up laughing.
Or there are times though where like Marshall gets a little scared, where he's like, no, we don't want to go to jail. I won't do well in jail. Yeah, and like you do get to see Marshall squirm.
Yep, and like there's a lot of fourth wall breaking in like subtle ways with Marshall too. It's like, you know, obviously if you go, well, I'm coming with you. You know, stuff like that.
But it's I love he just sits in the back seat, like just so,
right behind him,
so still the entire like for most of the movie. Like he's just like he's literally just hanging out.
Yep, just trolling.
Like the energy level is so low of him being like a threat there, you know?
Like 100%. And what's interesting that I don't think I even told you is as the movie progresses and the main character delves more into his
psychosis or whatever, his tendencies.
His temptations.
Yeah.
And his intrusive
Well, because that's
thoughts.
how they paint his like addiction is like he's being tempted to kill again.
Like,
and
I don't want to do it,
and it's almost a sexual thing for him too.
Yeah, because Marshall's like, come on, please.
Right.
We can just take a look at the dancers.
Well, yeah, and so the dancers is the first couple he like goes after, which he's begging to. They're driving home, you know. He makes up an excuse. He puts his wife to bed. And he's like,
no,
I'm just gonna go do some work in the studio,
like,
honey.
We should go get some ice cream.
Oh wait, that's right.
And his wife's like, yeah,
dessert was bad there.
Dude, his wife is like either the dumbest woman in the world or the sweetest woman in the world.
She's in like 2 scenes of the movie too. It's just like
just sleeping.
Yeah. He's like, I was just working on a new yellow glaze that I was trying to get right. She's like,
oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
You do have issues with those glazes. Mm-hmm. How about you just, you know, come make love to me?
But yeah, so he goes and follows the dancing club couple home, and he's spying on them. They're having sex, and he basically interrupts them. There's a suit up sequence for him first, where like we reveal he has like a wardrobe of his like serial killer outfits, and it's like just identical copies of like everything, but like, you know, they're meticulously spread out. Yep. He somehow has like a layer, like a bat cave,
mini layer of like just
and it like looks
stuff.
Gorgeous. Like they spent money on it. it's like dumb, but it's got like a giant furnace in the middle for him to like burn shit with. But anyways,
that's right.
He shows up to the couple's house, and the whole thing about Mr. Brooks is that he is a perfect serial killer. He's got a gun around, or he's got a plastic bag wrapped around the gun, so that when he shoots the couple, I guess it decases the bullet so that he can retrieve it later. Like it's all this like bullshit, right? But anyways, he walks in, he shoots both of the couples in the head, right? Like one shot clean, and he realizes that he left the window open. And Marshall kind of like chastises him for it, and then he closes the blinds. And yeah, I mean that's kind of the bow on that scene. But
they have a little parlay too. It's like, well, what if I wanted to get caught?
Right?
Know?
Oh yeah. Maybe I am being slippery,
and maybe someone did see them when the window was open.
I know it's very like, oh man, I hope this doesn't lead to anything.
Yeah, I hope no one saw us.
Yeah, and then very quickly we get to. I mean, it's just every layer of this gets better, in my opinion, when you add the storylines, because it's like, you know, Demi Moore, right, is playing the homicide detective who is going after the thumbprint killer. Right. She is worth. We find out this. Okay, first of all, Demi Moore is fucking gorgeous, you know. And nothing against her. It's a movie. I get why you do these things, but it's like, you've never seen a homicide detective look like this, right? and she is worth $60 million, we find out.
Oh, yeah.
And she's only doing this for like the love of policing or something. Like her whole character does not make any sense, but she's going through like a rom-com style divorce in the middle of this movie. Literally having scenes where she's just like, I wish you would die. And then like the lawyer's like, oh, that's it. You know, you just threatened my client. Just like the
because her husband's
shit you've seen
and stuff. It's like, it's all kind of like, no, we want to see more Marshall and, and more Kevin Costner.
Well, it's such an odd character that they cooked up here.
Yeah.
Like
which is interesting though. She's also infatuated with the thumbprint killer.
Well, right. I think she got personally tied up in his case early on, something like that. Right.
That's how we find out about all the intricacies of his murders. Like with the dancers, he rearranged the body, and it's usually romantic, but in this way, it was like lustful.
Right.
So he's
playing
into
with
it.
her for sure.
Yeah.
Because he has he later ends up killing her ex-husband.
Right.
Just to kind of like implicate her into the, it make everyone think she might be a suspect now, right? Like,
right.
He's totally fucking with her. But like you expect like this cat and mouse game is what they expected to have 3 films of material on, right? Like,
they're trying to like probably
she
lay
put him
like
away.
a small path for like a reconnect later on. But
it's just such a weird, like, I don't know. I'm like, why is this like the person who needs to take him down? Like,
really bloated character.
It's but so anyways, so yeah, she's on the scene, observing things in the room, and I think I'm pretty sure it's not the first time she's at the scene, but the second time she comes back to the scene of the crime, she's looking at the curtains, and she literally stares at the closed curtains, and she's like,
So what are these
curtains are closed. Yeah. I wonder, does that mean they were opened before? And then she opens the curtains, and then she's like, I've got a hunch someone must have seen this.
Yeah.
In the building across from here, which again is just like, why is everyone assuming this window is like a magical property? Like, that like, is just drawing every eye towards it.
And even later, she like somehow finds out that's like, yeah, well, they're always sleeping. They're always having sex with the window open.
Well, yeah. That makes sense. She's interviewing people around.
Right, but that's after the fact. Yeah. She's been on a small hunch.
There's no reason why she would think that. Yeah, exactly. Because there's no exhibitionism that's like really being shown off.
It's right in the beginning.
But anyways, so the thing that is even better than any of this is who saw the killing from the building across the hall. It's this peeping Tom type of character who was photographing them, played by Dane Cook. Now, Dane Cook shows up to Kevin Costner's office.
His work.
And basically has, the blackmail photographs in his hand. And is like, hey, I saw the killing happen.
Yep.
And he's like, but I'm not turning you in. He's like, he says, I felt the greatest thrill of my life, or the greatest rush in my life, when you killed that couple. Will you teach me how to kill? Like, will you take me on to the next killing? Which is like the biggest logical jump you can ask an audience to make, like, to get on board with this film.
With some random guy. And
And it's played by Dane Cook. Like, he's and he is trying his hardest to act in this role. He's bringing what he thinks is his A game, essentially.
For sure. And I think during this time he also did a love movie, like a love romance movie called Bad Luck Chuck or Good Luck Chuck.
That sounds about right. I know he was in Waiting around this time, and he was in this year he was in Dan in Real Life. Good Luck Chuck
might be
pulling up a year for you.
Might be
07.
Dude, let's go.
Dude, that's 07 too. That's wild.
Yeah.
Good luck, Chuck. Maybe we got a Dane Cook double in the future.
He was capitalizing because he was a respective comedian during this time.
Well, Employee of the Month was the year before this.
Oh, I saw that one.
Yeah, he was a
side character.
He was everywhere. He was hot fire for a minute, and then he fell off pretty fast.
But in this movie, he was not comedic at all. his character was like obsessed with this thing.
And he is a tryhard. It's like pretty.
He was like an incel before there was like an incel, you know, just like frustrated with society and just like pissed off at like anyone, you know, like and everyone, but also just so his plot line is so bad because he just keeps pestering Kevin Costner to kill, and like every time Kevin Costner dresses up to kill, he's like, all right, well, we're not gonna do it tonight, but we will do it tomorrow, or maybe the next day. and he's just like, okay, you're not pulling my leg, right, man?
Hey, we're gonna see it, like we're gonna do it, and like there's a moment where there's like a road rage like guy in a truck, and then he's like, you want to kill that guy? He's like, yeah, let's kill that fucking asshole. He's like, what if it's a woman?
Would you kill a woman?
Would you kill a woman? It's very interesting, just like that thing. But Kevin Costner as a murderer kind of works.
I mean, I think
as a serial killer,
it's okay, but it's not enough. Like the material isn't doing him any favors here.
Yeah. Without Marshall, this movie would collapse.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I mean, we like his daughter, right, played by Danielle Panabaker, who like everyone might know from Sky High.
Oh,
she was like the plant-based power girl, you know, like the kind of love interest in that.
Interesting, yes. She's like the.
She's in the Flash too. She's like
cool.
one of the main characters, main ensemble cast, you know.
Nice
people, and she plays a villain too because they do multiverse stuff. But she is interesting. She's pretty bad in this. She's definitely given like a CW level performance, you know.
Yes, and also she's supposed to be like, you know, in college or whatever, but like her relationship with her dad doesn't really seem like she's like an adult.
Well, the first scene we see her, she comes home and like she is flirting, like full on flirting with her dad, right? Like I wrote down the sequence of events. So she first kisses him on the lips.
Yes.
And then she's
not a slow peck like this.
No, like a kiss, like exactly. And then she's hanging around his neck. Like she's probably like at least 20 at this point in the story,
right?
If not older in real life. Then later she sits on his lap, and then she puts his glasses on.
Yeah,
you know, it's like four things where you're just like, Jesus, man, like you're laying it on thick. And it probably works with her being a sociopath, maybe, if you want to go into this like
realm. The mental space, you know.
And I have no idea where they wanted to take this plot line at all, because father and daughter killer was probably in the cards for the future.
Yeah.
But
that scene put me off. I was like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah, she just reveals like at the beginning, she's like, oh, I don't have my car, my friend's driving it up, like all this stuff. But basically, she's left behind a bunch of evidence that she did a killing on college grounds, and you know, like Mr. Brooks realizes that she's lying to him because he knows the playbook, right?
Actually,
but he's unable. Marshall, yeah, but he's unable, you know, to actually like get her to say anything. So, you know, as far as like this movie's concerned, he covers for her by like doing a copycat killing, while she's in town. That's right. So that, you know, it looks like there's another serial killer on loose, instead of just this being an isolated killing.
It was like a serial killer that just got out of jail, if I remember correctly.
But that's the thing, is that it's, you know, that's about all we get out of her character. Like, and that's maybe enough for a trilogy if like we were going to get into more, but it's like, it's really kind of questionable why she's even here in the first place, you know?
Yeah.
And like why this movie needs to delve into what it does.
Right.
But that's my bigger point about this film is like, and maybe even the other one too, plot is so hard to write. Like plot is actually one of the toughest things to do well, like to push your characters into interesting positions where they're making choices. Because like this film just kind of props up Mr. Brooks as like the cool badass killer for all of it. Like he's the perfect serial killer. He makes no mistakes. You know, like Dane Cook is never really a threat, even though like he is like, you know, threatening, like, I've got your photos in a safety deposit box. Like I could turn you in, you know, if you're not doing what I say. It always feels like Mr. Brooks is in control of the situation.
It's true.
And again, like, yeah, his daughter brings the cops to his door, you know, and he's like, oh, okay, well, that's easy. I just need to kill someone else. And like, since I'm a perfect killer, I can get away with this really easily. I'll just pull out my passports. And like, there's just not a lot of conflict for him in this film. And even Marshall is not that much of a conflicting character. Mm-hmm. He's just kind of sits back and grumbles when Mr. Brooks is like, now's not the time to kill.
Right.
Because but if this was one film, if they could only get it done in one film, Marshall would have to, you know, there would have to be that fight between the two of them.
Right.
Like the breakdown, and one of these guys would have to win. But they're playing this movie like a TV show.
Yeah.
And like that is really, I think, the problem here. It's why this thing never really took off.
I agree. Which it's funny because you're mentioning it like that. There is a chance that it could have, which it might have, right. You know, it might have been like, oh, wow, I remember that movie. I really liked it, but not many. I mean, we had one person who was like, oh, yeah, I think I remember that, you know?
Yeah, the guy at the video store where I rented it, I was stopped by Cinephile. Yeah, he had kind of heard of it. Yeah, like that. That's about it. I think if you were alive around this time, maybe you saw an ad because I'm sure something with Dane Cook in it was getting advertised.
Yeah, that's true. And like in the way it has some headliners, you know, as far as the whole entire actors themselves too. So they had backing, but it's interesting that they probably never followed through with making the trilogy.
No. Right? I mean, I didn't look at the box office for this, but it came out the same weekend as like Knocked Up, I think.
Oh yeah.
So that was just a death sentence.
Put your votes on which one do you like better, Mr. Brooks or Knocked Up.
We have covered both.
Yeah, you guys have, and it's interesting how we're leaning more into the horror, the horror season. You know, of going into October here. I think these are like some great movies that come across as thrilling and interesting, but like you said, both surprised us. What was the most surprising thing with you, Mr. Brooks?
Let's see. Oh, I'm pregnant. I forgot. His daughter says that she's pregnant when she comes home. That's pretty good.
That is right.
There's just a million plot points in this thing, you know?
Yeah.
Who says you look like that ET guy? That was a funny line. I don't know. I'm like, there's just a million weird things on my paper here.
I think it was. Yeah, who said that?
Oh, you know what I loved was like during the Demi Moore rom-com kind of side plot, they were like, if you don't deal with this marriage, like we're gonna have to shut down all your cases because then you know like your character is gonna be up in question, which is kind of a thing, but like it's got some plausibility, but she's just like, I can't, not with the thumbprint killing case and everything else.
Right.
And it's just like, I was just joking to you. Like they were following up on that, like in another scene where I was like, I just said it out loud. I was like, the FBI wants a report on your divorce. And then like a character essentially said that 2 seconds later. Like she was like, by the way, we need to check it. And like she was like the FBI check. It was just,
she's like, yeah, I need to report my desk by tomorrow.
Oh my
and she's
God.
like, about what? It's like your divorce.
Just rough, man.
Yeah. It's very like main character syndrome with some of these early movies where like the world's revolving around the character. You know what I mean? Like the world's just moving and reacting. Like if something happens in a diner in these like early 2000 movies, the whole crowd goes, huh? He's eating like that. Yeah, you know?
You know what else is insane is that there's the recently escaped serial killer has a grudge against Demi Moore's like detective, and they have a shootout that like lasts for like minutes, like where they're just like firing like an unreasonable amount of bullets at each other, and it feels so disjarring to everything else in this movie.
Yeah, just
like it's like the only action sequence in the film. Yeah,
which is I don't think even anyone gets shot during that sequence either. They just blast bullets at each other for a while.
Yeah, and then the other big thing I guess would be Dane Cook's eventual death scene. So essentially,
that's right.
Mr. Brooks sets up this idea that like he tells Dane Cook's character, the guy you're gonna kill is me, and he's like, we're gonna go to this graveyard, and you'll bury my body, and then you'll bury my body. I own this graveyard, and then they'll bury another body on top of me. So no one will know, from my family will know that I'm dead. I'll just disappear, so no one will ever find out I'm a serial killer, right? And they get to the graveyard. Dane Cook pulls out the gun, and is going to fire it at him, and then click, click, it's not working. Mr. Brooks is like, well, actually, I bent the clip of your firing, like the firing clip on your gun. So, yeah, I wasn't going to take any options here. I did have a backup gun in case they decide to go through with the killing. But, and then he like turns around with like, he grabs a shovel. He's like, I used to kill people in a lot of different ways. And he like just slices his throat with the shovel. Yeah. And then and then Dane Cook just falls into the grave. Like, it's just so... You're like, man, that was the climactic scene of this movie, huh? All right.
And Marshall made like a nice one-liner, of course.
Yeah.
After it happened.
It's more so that they committed to this, and that they also didn't go hard enough to make it work in the first film. Like this is exactly the type of film that failed because it was thinking about setting up a sequel too much instead of being a thing on its own.
Yeah.
And even sequels like need to be their own movies, Right. So but it is a fascinating object to look at, I think.
Yeah, it was. And, there was some loose plot points that were, like you're saying, branching off into sequels.
Right.
But
they show like Jane, who's his daughter, like slicing his throat with scissors at the end, and it's like a nightmare sequence. Mm-hmm. So, they have hints of like, oh, what's going to happen? But that's, as you're saying.
But their main plot that they were doing got to a decent close, I guess. Enough for a movie to be made.
Yeah, maybe.
But dude, the score in this film, I liked. I liked the score. I think like the music was pretty good and everything, and the attention to detail with like him being a serial killer was pretty well thought out.
I think there's a lot of good production design in this film, and again, his serial killer base looks really good. But there's just stuff like, what he locks into he breaks into the police mainframe, right? And like Marshall's like, people only knew how easy this was. Like the whole movie is just a hand wave for Mr. Brooks to be the coolest guy around, and it's just so dumb, man. Like, you're just like, I don't get why like someone thought this was gonna be compelling.
Sure,
It
didn't take a lot back then,
I guess, man. It's just kind of the definition of a film that kind of just goes through a lot of the beats,
Yeah. I wouldn't say it was bad, but there are moments where it was bad,
Right.
But there were also moments where it was funny bad, which I can mostly appreciate. That's like kind of my thing, is seeing if a movie's going to be ridiculous, might as well like double down on the ridiculousness.
Well, right, and that's the thing. I don't think it was having enough like genre fun. Like it took itself so seriously by being like, it's the whole Kevin Costner is a perfect killer thing. They're like, they want you to take it seriously that he thought about every detail about how the killing went down. Because they even go so far to be like, he vacuumed the house.
Oh, yeah.
Like after the killing. Like he leaves no trace behind. And so like if they want you to treat the world with that level of detail, like they have to treat the world with that level of detail too.
For sure.
The plotting just kind of feels so thrown together. It's just like, I want Demi Moore to actually like do some good detective work to uncover, what's going on, and not just have a magical hunch, because he is a perfect killer. He left no trace. They set that up. Like, you wrote yourself into that corner. You have to write yourself out of that corner.
Right.
And that's the fun thing about stories, is like putting yourself into an impossible situation and then actually being like, all right, let's use ingenuity. Let's be creative. Like that's where fun movies come out of. Like the Ocean's films. Ocean's, I think 13 is 2007, which we will get to. Nice. But like, that's a great like heist structure where they set up like, this is the objective, this is what we're gonna do. Right. The plan goes wrong, they have to improvise around it, but it's satisfying because you know what they're working towards, and they either fail or succeed in getting it.
Yeah, for sure. They bring you along with the ride. You know?
And like that's what I wanted more of, was like really Mr. Smith, which was Dane Cook's character, should have been so reckless that it made Mr. Brooks's killings reckless. The two of them should have been killing together the whole film. Yeah. And like Marshall should have been taking over more than Mr. Brooks. And almost like I think if Mr. Brooks killing Mr. Smith meant that he was like putting Marshall to rest for the film, that there would have been a really good like character struggle going on there with another external character. You know, like he's like, I'm literally killing someone physically, but I'm metaphorically putting you to rest too.
Right.
You know, like for today at least for movie one. Like I just think they gotta hype this up.
I think so too. I think you're right. They definitely could have expanded on their bare bones because their foundation wasn't terrible. You know?
I mean, but the Dane Cook being a serious actor thing is actually hilarious and definitely worth like seeing a scene or two of this film for.
Yeah,
I would say it's like it's not. I don't really. There's not too many movies I love to laugh at for being so bad or anything like that. But this just has so many unexpected choices in it
a lot of charm.
that it is constantly surprising you in just funny ways. That it is actually, I would say worth watching if you're interested by that description, because it is as baffling as it sounds.
Yeah, I would recommend to watch it as well as a funny watch. It's not a long watch either,
2 hours,
so it doesn't really drag on too much, you know. But yeah,
probably a background movie too if you wanted.
Yep, for sure.
For
sure, or a couple clips,
right?
But definitely a movie that I'll probably wouldn't have watched unless I was looking strictly into the year of 2007. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I will rewatch it. I discovered Tom Sharpling did a audio commentary of the entire film where he plays every character.
Oh, right.
And so I found a copy of it. So I think I might play that one day. I think that might be pretty funny.
That's awesome.
But that's probably where the bow's going to end on Mr. Brooks, unless people keep bugging about it. For decades after this podcast. Remember the Brooks episode?
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed that movie. My biggest surprise was it not being so linear, because I feel like murder movies can kind of be like, you know, there's a killer. I didn't know if Kevin Costner was the killer in this movie. I went in like completely blind.
Right.
I didn't know if it was going to be like a detective trying to unravel a mystery.
Right.
But it was interesting to see that point of view of like the internal struggles to a serial killer and seeing like the world around him kind of get intermeshed for a decent amount. You know, it was decent. It was a good watch.
I feel you. I agree. Well, I think that's all my thoughts on Mr. Brooks. I think we'll see. We'll take a short break and be right back for Believers.
Yep, unrated, twisted, smart, and seriously scary.
It says twisted on the front.
Twisted, smart, and seriously scary. Andrew Cash from the dreadcentral.com, of course. I mean, someone go to dreadcentral.com and leave a comment somewhere over there if it's still up.
For those who know, I'm just going to drop a twisted.
Smart.
And we are back, everybody.
All right.
We've got Believers Unrated, directed by Daniel Myrack. Myrack?
Yeah, Myrack.
Myrack? Yeah. Oh, I like that. So this guy was one of the co-directors of the Blair Witch Project.
Right.
He had another movie come out actually in 2007 called Solstice. But yeah, this is the one that we are covering, Believers.
Yep. The Blair Witch Project is actually used as advertising at the top. That's how you know it's good.
Well, and that was a huge part of this, right? Like, it was a parlay of like, from the producers of The Lord of the Rings comes The Chronicles of Narnia.
Yep, exactly.
And you're like, yeah, Peter Jackson is not involved in this in any capacity. Like, this is not going to be the same thing, right? Or that
they have a writer,
but it's marketing, you know. And Tim Burton's whole career, or like, you know, Spielberg, like there's all these guys who like become brands upon themselves.
100%, yeah.
Actually, speaking of this film and guys who make a brand upon themselves, M. Night Shyamalan. He had a movie come out this year called Knock at the Cabin Door, and I think that would be the movie that I think is actually somehow pretty similar to this.
Really?
Yeah, man. Because it's about like a cult kind of predicting the end of the world, and they're kind of trying to convince two other people to believe in it. And I mean that's essentially the plot of this film, is that this cult kind of like it kidnaps these two firefighters. And they're basically like, the world's gonna end in like a couple of weeks, you know, but we've used science to figure out that we can ascend through the multiverse and time and space to go back to the beginning of Earth.
They were saying some pretty base things for '07, you know? And definitely like the beginning of this film, we decided to watch a lot of the previews. But like there were always like, I mean, on the previews they were really boxed in.
Well, the first the I Am Legend one was like messed up because it was letterboxed on the top and then also on the right and left. So like we were watching like a screen within a screen, like, and at first I was just fucking worried that like we got a full screen DVD of this film and that like the whole thing was going to be boxed.
Yep.
And then the next trailer went to like full widescreen resolution, so we were fine.
And it was a trailer that was like their movie, so they were using someone else's like trailer, so it was probably, I don't know, some weird wacky stuff.
Well, yeah, all the trailers were for like bad direct-to-DVD horror movies.
Yeah, by this company called Raw Feed. If anyone wants to dive deep into some weird, wacky, bad horror,
here's the other 2007 ones they had on there. We had Flight of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
We had Return to House on Haunted Hill,
right,
which amazingly was promoting a DVD choose your own adventure style narrative on it
with over 96 endings and choices.
I think we gotta cover it. I'm actually like fascinated by that. Like I need to see what that is because that's like the Netflix thing. They did that too, right?
Yeah, the Black Mirror thing,
the Black Mirror,
or something like that.
And then there's another movie called Sublime that was in there. But anyways, it was
a lot of goofy films.
What a collection is all I have to say about it.
But I also saw when we were watching these trailers, especially the I Am Legend one, is like these are real trailers. These are not like your Netflix style trailers where they're gonna tell you the entire movie.
Oh my god! You're so right.
You have to step away because you're like, okay, now I want to watch it. You know, these trailers like leave mystery and intrigue.
They're atmospheric.
Yeah, and they would bring a theme. And they would leave up to interpretation. Like, I don't know what this movie's about yet.
A couple of these were really bad, though, too.
Yes, for sure.
These are not good trailers.
For sure. But the I Am Legend one...
Yeah, the I Am Legend one was great.
Was great because I know what that movie's about, but they didn't show,
the
zombies.
Aliens at all.
Yeah, the aliens.
Or whatever the fuck. Yeah, this movie was crazy, though, because we hit play on the DVD screen, and there were no production cards. Like there was no studio intro, like anything. It just started...
Straight to.
With a TV interview. With he's basically like the figurehead of the group.
Right.
He's not there. There's a man behind the chair who never comes out, who's actually in charge of this group. But then there's this guy who's the face of the cult, and his name's Io. And he's giving a TV interview on this show called Community at Large, and he's referencing his cult called the Quanta Group. And talking about how time is nonlinear and how they understand the multiverse, kind of the stuff we were explaining earlier, but just a little, just introducing the audience to the idea.
And the girl's like, basically in latent terms going, I have no idea what you are saying.
yeah.
And she's like, and next.
It's a cheeky interview.
Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting because he says this like dead face, and then he kind of just sits there for the rest of the interview like this.
Yeah, and then we cut to like our protagonist like hanging out in his bed and his wife's waking him up and like she's talking about like him going in for the day and like however she phrased it. Averick asked me, is he a fighter or a cop?
And he was like, you going to the station today.
The station, yes. Yeah. And I put down, I said cop.
Of course, he's like probably detective.
Well, you know, thinking about
and I was like, yeah, you're right, probably.
And then no, I think you would pick firefighter.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and then like we smash cut to him at the fire station.
I was just
yeah. But then quickly we get his like basically his version of a partner here, Vic. His just like the guy who's gonna come along for him, get on the ride, get kidnapped. Vic and Dave are eating lunch together. They're talking about the meals that their wives cooked for that. Or not no, Vic's not married.
Yeah, Vic is just talking about his wife.
He's
and
just
going, what is that?
Vic's just like, I wish I had a wife to cook me food.
Yeah, I want
that's
your
lasagna?
Food. Yeah. Lasagna?
He's like, you got Caesar salad? I don't like my lasagna. And basically, he's talking about the food. He's trying to pick at it. Dave's like, you always do this. Fuck you. And then Dave leaves. You know, Dave's wife is out front.
Yep.
And Vic is you know, he's got a couple options in front of him. And Averick says, do you think he's going for the cookie?
Or the lasagna.
Or the lasagna. And he went for the cookie.
He did.
I called that one.
He got one. I got one.
Hey, man.
Who doesn't want to buy of the homemade lasagna?
I mean, these were important choices in this film.
Yeah,
you
it's true.
I just have to set the record straight.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And then our main character finds out he's a dad.
Yeah, he finds out he's a dad, and then immediately the fire alarm goes on, and they have to go to respond to the call. They find like a woman who's passed out in the middle of a gas station that's also in the middle of nowhere. We assume they're in Northern California based on
it looks like
guess.
that. Yeah, just like rolling hills, dry.
Yeah. I feel it.
Middle of fucking nowhere.
Lots of empty space too.
Right.
So like it would make sense. It's up there.
The lady's passed out.
She's passed out. There's her daughter is like basically flagging down help and trying to do whatever. And there's like a weird mechanic that works at the gas station just watching. And the paramedics like try to save her, and then the girl's like, they're coming.
Hurry!
And then like some guys pull up in a truck in all white outfits with guns, and they're like, they basically they kidnap them all.
Yeah, they're like, step off, get the fuck out of here. And they're like, no, man, we're paramedics, we're trying to save her. But then, further convincing with the guns, because like, well, fuck this, man, I'm just gonna call this in, the partner. And he just gets shot right in the arm.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Immediately, and I was like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah, they don't let him patch it up. Like, you can tell, you're like, okay, he's going to be bleeding out like the whole film.
There's an ambulance right there.
Right.
Like, are they going to patch it? Nope, they just get in the back of the truck. The girl that they were trying to save is basically dead.
She is dead.
She's dead. She's flatlined,
It's so great, though, because they take him back to the compound and, like, and then there's a sign that's like, you are being observed.
Yeah, like crosshairs like on you.
Like, it was already a bad situation, man. I'm being kidnapped. Like, I assume they're watching me. But yeah, they put him in like these prison rooms, which are just bathroom stalls.
No, they're called the reflection room.
The reflection room, yeah.
And you get to reflect, but you just stay in like a
in the like smallest stall you've ever seen.
Like 3x6 fucking stall. And they sit there.
And they play like backwards voiceovers at them, like just subliminal messages, Tenet style. Though is what we were observing. I think there's a continuum to Tenet in this film.
M. Night Shyamalan. Wait, M. Night Shyamalan did Tenet.
No. That's Christopher Nolan. Yeah. I wish M. Night Shyamalan did Tenet, like, and then the twist at the end was like, I don't know, this guy went back in time and then like created all the M. Night movies or something. Something fucking
fucked up.
Like, yeah,
Christopher Nolan had big inspiration from Believers.
That's what I'm thinking. Well, I think it was half Believers and half Primer.
Primer.
That's where you got the actual time travel stuff from. I'm being a cheeky guy.
Dude, no one knows Primer. Everyone knows Believers.
Primer's really good. I think people know Primer.
So yeah, they do like the typical like groveling like, what are you guys doing here? What do you guys want with us? Just let us the fuck out.
Really, nothing happens.
It's
a very slow drip of information of like what the cult is actually doing, and like honestly, it's all so bullshitty that like you're not going to get an answer on this until the end, like whether they're telling the truth or whether it's kind of vague.
They're hinting towards like internal life, and they're referencing like this, like the formula, just like weird things. You're just like, doesn't make any sense to you as a viewer.
They bring back the girl who died, like at the gas station. They like bring her back to life, and then she's like brainwashed, and so and her daughter's even like, what happened to you? So it's like, yeah, you're really not. I mean, they're trying to make you deny kind of like that. These guys,
right? They
want you to think these guys are full of shit,
and they spend a lot of time in the reflection room, kind of talking back and forth, and like their dialogue is okay,
Yeah, but there's a vent, and like Dave crawls up it, and he sees like a classroom where the kids are like being indoctrinated, and you're just kind of like, yeah, this is a cult. Like they want you to not buy into the fiction of this. And because even Dave gets like captured, and they just like shock him with electrotherapy, and they're like, yeah, this is just what we do to people. And so you're like, okay, so everyone here's just fucking batshit, right?
Yeah,
like,
everyone's fucked. But they're also like referencing people that are like doctors and decorated people that like, so
when they're like, everyone chose to be here,
right? And they, with the little drips of information that come out, you come to terms that the cult understands that they want to start a new world because this world is going to end.
Yeah, they use the formula, as they call it, to like figure that out, which just like, they believe that like the gods are speaking to them through math.
Right.
It's all interesting stuff on paper.
Yeah.
And like I just think like it doesn't really culminate into like an interesting film because like the plot itself is a lot of okay, go sit in the prison. Okay, come out. We'll talk to you for a little bit. Okay, go back to the prison. Okay, come out. And it's just like not a lot of choices are made, you know, where you're just kind of sitting and watching as they reveal and tell things to you.
Yeah, almost begging for information. You're like, what is happening?
And you just, you need a little more show, a little less tell.
And you want to feel bad for the characters, but you kind of just got to know.
They're so generic.
Yeah,
you're just like,
dad,
dude, like,
know?
You're like, one of these guys is going to die, right? Like, Shirley, and the other one's going to make it out. And
yeah, I wonder which
one. You're pretty sure the one who's got a kid is going to be the one who survives.
No, it's the guy with the bullet hole that's bleeding a whole lot.
Yeah.
Where he goes, man, I remember I was super sick and I felt like dying.
Right.
And he prayed over me, man. I was alive.
Yeah, the guy who seems to be giving in to the cult's like messaging. You're like, surely this guy's gonna make it out.
Yeah, there's a chance. But me and him were both betting, like, oh, dude, is this gonna come to a close? Are they gonna leave this open? Because it felt like a movie that had a lot going for it, but it was just gonna lead you astray and not answer any questions.
Yeah.
Not close anything down. You know, the guy's just gonna get out and get away, or like do something badass. But we're kind of curious. And as the story progresses, you get to see that like how we're saying the sidekick is kind of giving into this message a little bit. And eventually he like starts to believe in the message and starts to become a believer himself.
A believer.
No.
They even reference him as a believer. And then the girl turns to the camera and winks at you. I said the title of the film.
I said you're a believer. You are a believer.
I'm a believer. I'm a believer.
This cult is not even like a bad cult, you know? Like they're not doing anything like fucked up. They're just kind of weird, you know? Everyone's just like, but like if you think about the whole entire concept of time and we could just be happy forever and live in this world. And it's just like, what the fuck are you guys talking about?
It's not like that interesting. Everyone's just like weird to be weird, you know, or just boring. There's not really that many characters within the cult that, you know, like have distinct personalities, which is probably the point that they're all brainwashed and acting as one. But
then because it caused some discourse between me and Lewis here, we're like, okay, so are they brainwashed? Because there was a moment where the leader, his name is the teacher, was speaking through the mom that died.
Right. Well, it sounded like an earpiece thing, but then like I didn't see an earpiece, and he wasn't talking into a mic.
And then he just stopped talking completely.
Right. And then it almost seemed like he was doing it with his mind. And I actually like fucked with that. I was like, oh, maybe this dude's like a psychic freak, like expanding his power by like making other beings come into him, like the brain. That's a throwback. But like it was nothing like that. I was just like I mean, the ending's interesting here because, like, basically Dave tries to escape twice. The first time it fails. The second time he gets out,
right?
With the girl. But basically he gets out because everyone in the suicide cult is like starting to kill themselves. You know, they get into one big chamber.
Yep.
And they turn on the gas.
Yep. It's the big moment, you know?
Yeah.
We're thinking like, what the fuck's going to happen?
But where you're thinking Jonestown, right? Like they're giving the vibes of that where it's that's a classic example of a cult where the leader told everyone, you know, that they were going to ascend to heaven and they all just killed themselves with like cyanide or whatever poison he put in the Kool-Aid they all drink. So that's just your brain is certainly going there for the whole film. Like I do kind of like that they're towing that edge. Mm-hmm. But
you're also like rooting, like, dude, all right, this is all these people are fucking crazy. We want this guy to like get out and like just go home to his family and it's going to close. Like that's going to be a happy ending movie.
Right. When she gets home, he does have the happy ending for a moment and then the newscast comes on and it's like, oh, the world's ending. And he walks outside and he sees missiles raining down on Earth like it's the fucking end of Oppenheimer or some shit.
She goes, honey, it's fire. It looks like fire. It's like, yeah, no shit. It's like, wow, look at it. It's like, no, not look at it. And then she like almost asks him for help. She's like, babe? It's like, what do you want him to do?
Right. But like, okay, so the reason why I bring up Knock at the Cabin Door, which I'll do brief spoilers for if anyone hasn't seen that film, but it's the same formula, but it's so much better. It's four people all have the same vision of the world ending, and they find each other. They've never met each other. And they're like, okay, we have to we have to go to this place and we have to convince these three people that the world is going to end, and unless one of them kills another one of them. So it's a family unit of 3, and they're like, one of you has to die, and if you don't believe us, one by one, we will kill ourselves to prove to you how much this means to us. So every character gets like a moment where they are like, no, like my whole life is on the line for this thing. You do not understand. I need you to believe this. And like that puts an enormous amount of stakes on like, the non-believers versus the believers, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like this is just a movie about like some guys sitting in a bathroom stall, miserable as hell, just being like, when can I get the fuck out of here? And it's not that scary or thrilling.
There was no gore really.
Right. And I liked the ending. I liked that like they went with the sour ending with that twist, but like there was not enough
the cult was
stuff to happen along the way to make it interesting, to really make me question whether this was happening or not. And a thing that in Knock at the Cabin Door that happens is like after they're at an isolated cabin, so they're away from the rest of the world, right? And in between every killing, a new plague is dropped on humanity. So like each time they don't do something, the world's getting worse, right? And they turn on the news and they see like, okay, this first thing happened. Like a bunch of planes went down and crashed, and and at first you're like, is that just a coincidence, or did they fake this news footage? But then like with each killing, shit gets worse, and they're like, oh fuck, and until the very end when it's actually basically the same ending as this film where they were right, but like the family didn't do a killing, and they doomed humanity.
It sounds like it's the Knock at the Cabin Door.
Is this film? It's the better version of this film.
But it built it in the way of like suspense and drama and intrigue. This one, it leaned heavily on the mystery and like.
But the mystery they didn't expand on enough, right? Like,
exactly.
And that's what I'm getting.
That's
at.
what
it's
fell,
just like
fell flat.
They set up the initial mystery, and you're like, that sounds cool, and then you just wait till the end to get the answer,
right?
And
I'm like, oh yeah, they're all just gassing themselves. That's how you guys are ascending, which they're not wrong. Like, yeah, this is your resurrection, your eternal afterlife, they're just talking about death, really. There's like, oh yeah, we're just gonna die in our controlled way, I guess. It's very interesting, because like it could have explained, because it kind of was insinuating that they're gonna take their consciousness and put it elsewhere and like build a community and like have like these seeds of a foundation of a new planet.
It sounded like exactly they were shifting their bodies through, not even their bodies, their spirits through the universe,
right?
And going to the other side of the universe or another multiverse. And honestly, it's so far fetched. I love that they don't actually show you what happened. You could believe there's a version of this film where those guys were right about the world ending, but they killed themselves in that bunker for no reason, and then mankind ended 2 weeks later, and that was it.
Yep.
If you want to take the ultimate nihilist take, which is kind of cool. I like that they don't confirm whether this happened or not,
And that was my biggest surprise with this movie. And like I had you answer yours from Mr. Brooks. My biggest surprise for this one is it not being really like the Hills Have Eyes-esque vibe, like gory and fucked up, and there's torture. It's all just like kind of mumbo jumbo, and then like mystery.
Yeah,
I thought it was gonna be like fucked up when I saw the unrated Believers, Blair Witch Project. Oh god,
twisted movie.
No,
and that's exactly why I wish there was more of the scientists coming forward and being like, hey, this is why I changed my whole belief system. I was this guy, and like now I'm this. Like, because they hinted at interesting things, but then you never see the community,
right?
And because they want you to buy into the fact that it's fake more than it's real. They want to hit you with the twist that it's real at the end, but I just don't think they build up enough of it.
Yeah, I agree, because you're living vicariously through the main character and his intrigue is zero. Like the main character is all you need to know about him is fuck you guys, I want out, fuck you. Yeah. Vic, where's Vic?
Where's Vic?
Where is he?
Dude, there was like a where is he yell, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was at the there near the end. There's a very Batman-esque vibe, and you won't recognize anyone in this movie. If you do, it's gonna be. I recognize one guy, but Louis like, yeah, he's probably not even in the cast because of how little information.
I was on Letterboxd, and there wasn't even a full cast on there. There's a full cast on IMDb. If you want to scroll through, you could look for his photo. But I'll land the ship here for us.
Yeah, I mean, there's one like more weird part where like the teacher who's like the guy in charge of everything is maybe the dad of the little girl who we saw at the beginning.
It's Chris Farley's brother, John Farley.
John Farley. Holy shit.
I knew I recognized him.
Oh, fuck. Wait, you're right, bro. He's in this for such a small amount of time, too.
He's the guy that keeps going, no talking.
Yeah. Oh, that's wild.
I knew I recognized
Weird
him.
film, man. Weird film. Yeah. But yeah, The World Ends is pretty...
They at least stuck the ending. And an ending can be a tough thing to hit, but yeah.
Yeah.
Again, the plotting didn't work for this film as well either. It's just a lot of hanging out.
A lot of emptiness, and I'm really glad it came together at the end. I feel like that's really important for movies, is to, even though if you have like a misguided plot, and this is, you know, a message to anyone writing a story or anything, you know, make sure that you come to a good close, or else we're gonna roast you.
No, it's about the journey too, man.
Yeah, that's true.
Journey.
That's true.
Well, Averick, thanks so much for coming on.
It was a very fun episode.
Yeah, it was a great one.
This is our third time together. You know?
Dude, hell yeah. Thanks for bringing the movie, because I was so glad we got to see Mr. Brooks, and I mean, Believers was a lot of fun too.
It was.
So it's a great double, and yeah, nice unconventional episode.
I think I had a really great time as well. You know, out of these 3 episodes, tell us what's your favorite movies and our takes on them. You know, something you disagreed on, something you agreed on. I'm curious. You know, because I want to watch back and see if I really feel the same way. And building these movies is kind of like building weird film knowledge and better opinions. You know?
I think bad, quote unquote, bad movies are just so much more informative than good movies, right? Like you see all the pieces here, you're like, oh, they had interesting ideas, but yeah, they didn't make it click. And it's the type of thing that should make you push for, you know, more excellence in your own work, right? Like to realize, like, yeah, you can have 80% of it there, but like, you know, it does need the extra polish or something else, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I don't know if what studio greenlit these films. Like, you know, it's interesting.
I wonder which one, you know, they probably did okay.
I mean, this was the DVD era, so I feel like, you know, they made their money back on DVDs at least, but obviously Mr. Brooks didn't get a Mr. Brooks 2. What would the sequel be? Mr. Brooks and Daughter?
Mrs. Brooks.
Mrs. Brooks.
Well, thank you, Lewis, for having me.
She did nothing the whole film, but this time she's doing it all.
She is doing her dad.
Oh, that's good. That's the end.